You're working yourself to the bone, but your business isn't growing. That's because we're fed the lie that working hard is the only way to succeed. But there's a way for you to work less and get more done with these 7 principles. Starting with a tool we can steal from bricklayers in the 1920s, no joke. According to efficiency expert Frank B. Gilbreth, who, fun fact, is the father figure in Cheaper by the Dozen, most of the improvements that eliminate unnecessary movement and reduce fatigue have been hit upon by men who were lazy. So lazy that every needless step counted. In fact, he found that the expert workers are often the most wasteful of their motions and strength, because they tire themselves out of proportion to the amount of work they've done. His research is the source of that quote often attributed to Bill Gates. I will always choose a lazy person to do a difficult job because a lazy person will find an easier way to do it. But this isn't a bad thing like most of us have been taught. In fact, growing up in an Asian immigrant household, if there is one thing I know, it is how to work hard. But you can make a lot more per hour you work when you work hard without making the work harder than it needs to be. One of my favorite ways to do this is to never repeat or redo anything I don't have to. By training yourself to be able to do the thing well in one go, while also knowing how to identify the best way and time to do it. When you start making a habit to ask yourself, what's the lazy way to do it, you'll start cutting out a lot of unnecessary work too. High five to that. But that also means you have to make the work you do count even more. One of the most impactful videos I've ever watched was one from Tony Robbins, and I don't even know how I found it, from decades ago, giving a piece of essential advice, and I'm paraphrasing. You've got to work in your business to maintain it, but you've also got to work on your business to make sure it lasts. But I think you can take it even one step further. Prioritize work in your business that grows it now and in the future. Take creating a new course and the assets to sell it, like a sales page and sales emails. That will make you sales now. But also next year, you'll be able to reuse those assets to make more sales. This is how you increase your earnings per hour worked without doing extra work. It's one of the most important principles that has allowed me to build a 7-figure business over the past decade that continues to grow while I work less and less. But it doesn't happen by accident. In fact, it used to take me over 3 hours to write a single newsletter to my email list, and it wasn't a very good one at that. But then I started noticing parents who own businesses say over and over how much more productive they became after having kids, because they have to be. But it's not just parents either. I've heard the same thing from people who have health issues that prevent them from working more than just a few hours a day. Now, I'm only a mom to my sweet Falco, but I've used this principle to get my work time to less than 20 hours a week. I don't allow myself to do more than 4 hours of concentrated work each day on luisazhou.com. Once I reach that limit, the work laptop is closed. Plus, I don't have my work email on my phone either, so I'm not tempted to cheat. But this does take practice. Not only do you have to be laser focused during your work time, but you also need to know exactly what you're gonna work on before you sit down to work. There's a really simple way to do this though. I'm old-fashioned and still prefer pen and paper, but you can do this anywhere. Every day before I wrap up, I write my to-dos for the next day like this. But okay, you can see I don't have a lot of things each day. I just pick the few most important things I know I can get done. This way you actually get it done. And isn't it so satisfying to cross off each thing as you finish it? That's my favorite part. But sometimes I still don't get everything I want done, like this one, write a YouTube script. That's okay, it can wait until tomorrow. Now, as your big sister in business, I'm always gonna be real with you. So in all honesty, I'm not perfect with this. Sometimes I work a little bit more when something has to be done that day. You gotta do what you gotta do. But the more you practice, the better you'll get. Plus, as your business grows, you'll have more assets and team members to support you too, which means that the longer you're in business, the more frequently this will happen. It starts with planning your time before it's time. But even when you know exactly what you're going to do, there's one thing that can make a big difference to your results. This is really important because your audience's attention span is so short. That's why focusing on just one piece of content that gets the best results ever, like going viral, is not a good use of your time. You'll probably be able to grow more and help more people if you instead focus on getting things good enough. That means you can sit down, do the thing you need to, and be done. But if that feels impossible, don't worry. This is a skill you can teach yourself. It's how I'm now able to write a newsletter in less than 30 minutes and hop on a live stream with less than 5 minutes of preparation. My goal is to create something excellent, but it doesn't need to be perfect. But there's an important point that most people miss. Without it, you're still gonna find yourself wasting a lot of time and feeling stuck. I recently saw this TikTok with supermodel and legend, Naomi Campbell. She said, and I'm paraphrasing, the things you want at a certain time aren't necessarily the things you're meant to have at that time. She was talking about wanting to star in a Calvin Klein campaign, but this applies just as well to your business. At each stage of your business, there are certain things you're meant for and not meant for, including the problems you focus on. For example, I kept the same website for about the first 7 years of running luisazhou.com, long after it wasn't really a fit for my brand anymore. It did bother me, but I knew I had more important things to focus on, like building my systems and establishing my reputation. I told myself, and you're welcome to borrow this, that's future Luisa's problem. When you solve the right problem at the right time, you waste a lot less time, money, and effort. A little waste is inevitable, but you'll still save yourself a lot. But you might be thinking, how do I know when something is the right time? I like to keep it simple using a very straightforward principle. Master one thing at a time before you move on to the next thing. But to decide what order to master things in, the easiest way is to categorize your options by the amount of time they'll probably take to pay off. For example, you can start getting clients via social media fairly quickly, but it'll take longer to do that via SEO. That's why I started with social media in the beginning of my business. But once I started getting clients consistently from social media, I added on other strategies. In case you're curious, I then moved on to paid Facebook ads, then SEO. An email subscriber once asked me a really interesting question. When do you decide when it's time to give up on a strategy? My answer? Never. But not because I don't fail. I do, often. But because I've learned how to wait until the right time to commit to a strategy. People don't talk about this, but it's so important. Believe it or not, I only started scripting my YouTube videos about 2 years ago. That's 7 years into running luisazhou.com, because that's how long it took for me to be able to commit. I had mastered the other things, and now I was ready to focus on creating better videos. When you shift to waiting to commit to a new strategy until you're ready to do it forever, you don't have to turn back or give up before it starts paying off. That's how you get your work to stack up and pay off much bigger and faster. But you do have to know what to do. The good news is, all you need are 3 to-dos, which is how I've run a 7-figure business for almost a decade while working less than 20 hours a week. I walk you through what they are in this next video, so you don't waste any time and know exactly how to grow faster while working less.